I wasn't particularly happy with the last video about changelings I did, which was an analysis of the Kith called Ishu. And that's because I don't like them very much. I thought I'd offset that by talking about changelings that I do like, a Kith called Knockers. Now, Knockers are inspired by little Welsh mining fairies called Knockers, who go around in mines and knock on mining walls in order to see whether or not it's hollow to protect miners, of course, but other stories have them as malicious pranksters who, like, steal pickaxes and other mining equipment, or in some rare cases, even lanterns while miners are working, trapping them down in the darkness. And some people say Changeling isn't scary. Alright, so for a basic description, Knockers are inventor fairies in Changeling. They're very good at building things. Kind of like how Boggans are very good at fixing things, Knockers are good at building, and that's reflected very well in their birthright and their frailties. And we'll get to that. But first, a little bit of a description. Knockers tend to have like thick red skin, translucent white hair. They'll dress very smartly. Like, imagine bright colors, frilly, almost like old world court and royalty, something you'd see out of a Renaissance fair. And their clothing will usually be very intricate as well. Like, imagine buttons and swirls and miscellaneous fabric that doesn't need to be there. They rarely smile. They tend to be very cynical all the time, but when they do smile, you'll see pointed teeth. So that's fun. Yeah, like I just said, they're inventor fairies. So let's get right into the mechanics of the Knocker Kith with birthrights. Their first birthright is one of my favorite things in the whole game. It's called Forge Chimera. And I've done a video about Chimera before, and I'll link it in the description below. But basically, a chimera is an object or creature made entirely out of imagination or dream stuff. Normally, in order for a character, or a player character rather, to have access to chimera, they need to invest some dots at character creation into the chimera background, which in turn gives you a pool of points with which to build your chimera. Knockers can just build inanimate objects, provided that they can pass an extended roll of intelligence and crafts against some pretty decently high difficulties. For instance, making a chimerical baseball bat, the book recommends rolling intelligence plus crafts at a difficulty 5, and you need to accumulate 5 successes. So that's fun. I don't know why I said it like that. It is very fun. It's interesting to see what Knockers can come up with, Knocker players anyway. They do need some privacy, as usual, with this sort of power, in that they need to be fully concentrated and devoted. They'll kind of like go away for a few days while they're working on their thing. And it doesn't work in the presence of mortals. Their next birthright, called Fix It, does work in the presence of mortals. So at character creation, you choose whether you want intelligence crafts or intelligence intimidation, and you can use Fix It to encourage or frighten machines into working correctly for a short time. So if your car is broken down and you can't quite get it to the mechanic, you might be able to have a knocker yell at it enough in order to convince it to make it those last few miles. And that does work in the presence of mortals. It's very interesting. You also get to choose at character creation a specific kind of device, so car or cell phone, that it's easier to do that with. So let's move on to the frailties. This is the first in many example. This is the first of many examples of Kith frailties with no mechanical drawback. For Knockers, it's called flaws. Whatever a Knocker builds, and keep in mind that building is central to a Knocker character, anything you make, chimerical or real, art or functional, even if you're just writing a story, there is going to be one inconsequential flaw to it, no matter what. No matter how high you roll, there's going to be a hairline fracture. There's going to be just one word out of place, and you can never fix it, and it's going to bother you until the end of time. And that's why Knockers are so cynical all the time. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. Like, honestly, it's just an annoying fault. It's just something you have to role play out. That's fun. Finally, from the mechanical standpoint, we have the Knocker affinity, or realm of magic that they're particularly good at. And in this case, their affinity is prop, which makes sense. Knockers are very good at magic that affects objects rather than people or other fairies. So, as far as my thoughts on Knockers go, I really, really do like them. They're, as player characters, they can be very fun to play because you get to be very grumpy and cynical, and that can lead for some interesting character concepts in a game that's all about fantasy adventure. However, they can be a little annoying, especially if you get World of Darkness players who take things like descriptions way too seriously. So, for instance, you might get somebody who is just so negative all the time, and they're constantly attacking other player characters with insults, which is something that Knockers are supposed to do. That's not very fun. So Knockers are good for really all sorts of chronicles, too. Their ability to fix things means that they're invaluable in long-term traveling chronicles, or in short-term chronicles that have to do with Chimera. In fact, if you're going to have a chronicle that has heavy use of the dreaming, you're going to want a Knocker on board for their expertise in chimerical objects and creatures. They're not very good for a lot of high-action adventure chronicles because in order for their chimera crafting to function, they have to go away for a long time. In addition, if you play a Knocker the way you're supposed to, you're going to need to do a lot to offset a mechanic called banality, because one of the ways you gain banality is by spending too much time by yourself with Chimera. Okay, so closing thoughts, I'd give Knockers a solid 3 out of 9, keeping in mind that 1 is the best and 9 is the worst. I don't think I've ever clarified that. They're my third favorite changeling. And I will get to number 2 and number 1, but just keep in mind that I personally really love Knockers, and I haven't seen a lot of them in play, but I really would like to. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.